Good afternoon, kulħadd. Thank you tal-li ġejtu, thank you Mrs. Xiberras tal-li għajt l-istadina tagħna. Ikonna ħafna mistoqsijiet fuq il-proċess tal-Guardianship u l-Guardianship Board. Ta' spiss aħna nintaqgħu ma' każi li ikollhom bżonn dan il-proċess u ikonna ħafna diskussjonijiet fuq każi partikolari, fuq issues soċjali ma' social work unit, per eżempju, fej l-affarijiet ma jkunux daqshekk ċari ta' kif l-aħjar forsi nduru magħhom. U inħasset il-ħtieġa li ta' min jiġifieri we reach out to you as a board, as a registrar, u forsi nibdew turina daqsxejn tispjegana daqsxejn il-proċess x'inhu tal-guardianship u niddiskutu daqsxejn l-issues li jkollna waqt tal-proċess. Għandna challenge illum għax għandna numru ta' nies fis-sala u numru ta' nies online.
Sorry, is it going to be in Maltese or English?
Yes, that is one of the issues I was going to mention. We have an option. We can do it in Maltese or English. The PowerPoint is in Maltese, but we can maybe send you at a later date the PowerPoint in English as well. So
Please.
The people online can hear me. Okay, so can you see the presentation? I believe it's viewable as well. We are going to be taking questions after the presentation. So Ms. Xiberras will first carry out her presentation, and then we will take questions from the room and then from online. Please type any questions you might have in the chat. Okay, so we'll facilitate and tackle each question after the presentation. Okay, I think that's it. So Mrs. Xiberras joined the registry of the Guardianship Board in 2022 as an acting registrar. She graduated with a Bachelor's of Arts in Health and Social Care Management and carried out a postgraduate degree in Human Resource Management. Ms. Xiberras has work experiences including working with people with disability as well as with the elderly, both directly and indirectly. And during this session, as I said, we'll be tackling what the guardianship process is, who can apply, and how can one use the guardianship order and what powers does it offer, and how can one renew the guardianship order. So I invite Ms. Xiberras to start her presentation.
What is guardianship? I always like to start the presentation by saying that guardianship is different from interdiction, incapacitation, and power of attorney. So, who can grant a power of attorney? Anyone who has mental capacity can grant a power of attorney. The power of attorney will lose its validity when a person loses their mental capacity. Why? Because they cannot go to the notary and tell him, listen, I don't want that person to continue being my power of attorney. At that stage, a person would need to apply for guardianship or interdiction or incapacitation. Is that as years move on, even the courts, when they receive an application for interdiction, in some cases, they are telling them, listen, why don't you apply for guardianship instead? It's a less restrictive measure, okay? Because guardianship, basically, at times you treat them case-by-case basis. Some cases, the guardianship is not issued for the guardian to represent the person, but to assist the person. So, for example, if the person still has some mental capacity, but not full mental capacity, and they can visit the bank, but they need some assistance maybe, the guardianship will be issued for Bernie Xiberras to assist Tawa Anthony Borch. So when we visit the bank, okay, they will not If Anthony Bourne goes by himself, the person under guardianship, they will tell him, listen, your guardian should be here with you. But if the guardian goes by herself to the bank, they will tell her, no, the person under guardianship should be here with you because you're only authorized to assist him. Okay? With the interdiction, you cannot do that. If a person is interdicted, basically they lose all their rights. So a guardian is appointed by...
Isn't there something in between? Either losing order rights or guardianship?
Sorry?
Isn't there something in between?
What?
Jek ma jimpurtax għan nittifidaw questions wara, ta' għax jista' jkun ħadd irrispondi.
All right.
So the guardian is appointed by the board to help the person who is under guardianship to make their decisions and in their daily life whilst promoting their autonomy. Okay? Now, there can be more than one guardian appointed. Okay? There can be 2, 3, 4 guardians appointed. However, if there are 4 appointed guardians, okay, and they are going to the bank to represent the person, all 4 persons need to be present at the same time. Okay? Recently, we had discussions with the bank as well. There were some issues when more than one guardian is appointed. Let's say there's 2 appointed guardians, okay? And they apply to have a debit card. They tell us, listen, in today's day and age, it's not, it's a lot of hassle for us to visit the bank every month, wait after the people, a lot of queue, to withdraw 200 euros to buy the necessities that the person needs. So can you kindly authorize that we have a debit card issued? The bank told us when there is more than one guardian appointed, this is not feasible. Why? Because if they issue a debit card, who's going to hold it? Which guardian is going to hold it? What if guardian A goes, withdraws X amount of money without guardian B knowing? Okay? So from the bank, they told us that in those regards, it is better if one guardian is appointed. However, it is also understandable that some people, they might be 2 or 3 siblings, they tell us, listen, we want to share the responsibility. It's okay for us to visit the bank together. We want to keep check of each other, kind of, you know. And they decide to be appointed jointly, the 3 of them. Mela, to apply for guardianship, one needs obviously to download the application from our site or give us a call and we can send them the application by post, or they can either make an appointment at our office. They come, bring supporting documents, and we help them fill the application there as well. We offer that service. A guardianship order can be issued either on matters related to health, to personal welfare, either on matters related to finances, or on matters related to personal property management. Okay, so one person, they can apply for personal welfare only, or for personal welfare and finances. Maybe the person who is under guardianship, they don't have any property, so they will tell us, listen, we don't need it to cover property as well. Just personal welfare and finances are good for us. Alternatively, some people may decide to apply for the 3 different powers, okay? And we explain it to them. If you have all 3 powers, it's like you have a general power of attorney. Some people, they still refer to the guardianship as a power of attorney, especially the older people. And for us to make them understand, that's how we explain to them as well. So when you have the 3 powers, we call it guardianship order in all acts of civil life. So basically, on the application itself, there is a list of supporting documents that one needs to submit with the application, which are the ID copies of the applicant, of the person who is going to be subject to guardianship, birth certificate of the person subject to guardianship, and police conduct of the applicant, together with a medical report, which should not be older than 30 days. So they need to submit it at our office within 30 days of its issuance. Moving forward, who can apply to be a guardian? So the person must be an adult, which means 18 plus. Yes, be a resident of Malta. And ideally, if the person who is subject to guardianship is able to give her consent to the person being appointed as guardian, that would be better from our end. Yes, so of course, the guardian has to act in the best interest of the person under guardianship. That is why they are being appointed as such. Whilst promoting the autonomy of the person under guardianship. That is why whenever we can, we issue the guardianship to assist rather than to represent. However, there are those cases where the person has to represent the persons under guardianship. Who can ask to be appointed as guardian? The husband or the wife of the person, their children, their siblings. A person herself, if she wants someone to act as her guardian, they can ask for guardianship to be issued themselves. In such cases, I don't know if you know about it, there is a metric called enduring power of attorney. Not a lot of people know about this. However, we also inform people that this is something that they can apply. So basically, the difference is that whilst the power of attorney, you go to the notary and you issue it right there and then, the enduring power of attorney comes into effect when the person loses her mental capacity. Okay? So she can be compost mental, go to the notary and tell him, listen, when I start suffering from XYZ or when I lose my mental capacity, I want my daughter to be granted my power of attorney. Mela, to issue this, you will need to go to a notary or a lawyer and they would need to submit a report at court. So after we receive the application, the board reviews each and every application individually and they decide whom they would like to summon to appear before them. Of course, they will always ask to summon the applicant. If the person has more than one child other than the applicant, we do our best to summon all of them to make sure that everyone is in agreement, that there is no conflict of interest. The waiting time as of today is approximately 1.5 months to 2 months. As of this morning, this year, we already received 99 applications. The board meets 3 times per month. And we hear around, let's say, 40 applications every month. So the slide is not changing, but the next slide is a prototype of what the guardianship order looks like. It's basically a certificate, and on it you have all the information of who is the appointed guardian, who is subject to guardianship, and what powers the guardianship covers, as well as when it expires. It is signed by all 3 members of the board. And here at the bottom, it tells you when it expires. Okay, because the guardianships, most of them expire after 1 year. Mela, the procedure when the guardianship expires. Let's say the guardianship expires at the end of March. 1 month before, we send the guardians by post an annual report document, which they must complete. They must also submit the bank statements of the previous year. So, for example, from March to March, as well as the relevant receipts. Why? To give us an account of what was withdrawn, what changed in the account, and how it was spent. We want to make sure that any money withdrawn was actually spent for the benefit of the person who was under guardianship and that there was no abuse. Abuse is more common than you think. I'm sure you meet a lot of cases. Just last week, we had two children. They withdrew 58,000 from their mother's bank account. When we inquired, okay, what did you do with this money? She wanted to give them to us as a donation. Okay, so from the medical report, this woman, she's non-verbal, she's bedridden, okay, she's not mentally incapacitated, so how could she tell them, yes, go, take it as a donation, okay? In that case, it ended on a good note because we requested that they reimburse the account, the full amount, and they did. Okay, unfortunately, that is the case. And before I joined the guardianship, I remember them speaking about it. A woman took 60,000 euro from her aunt's bank account. She said the reason was that my aunt wanted me to withdraw the money to fix her house, her aunt's house, so I can go live in it with my family. Okay? We told her, you're planning to move your aunt out of the home to live with you so you can take care of her. She told us, no, she just wished for me and my family to go there. We contacted the home and she told us, no, she barely even comes. We called her to buy the medicine. She doesn't even buy it for her. Okay, so that case was referred to the police. Unfortunately, years down the line, recently I received the letter from them. They told us we cannot do anything about it because this is a civil case. Okay? It's not in the future. They are discussing a new law that will safeguard vulnerable adults, okay, where cases such as these would be taken care of by a directorate, and a criminal case, they will be seen as a criminal case, and they will be reviewed by courts, etc. There are also cases where if there is more than one sibling, for example, during the board, after they submit the application, everyone's in agreement, okay, with appointing X as the guardian. Few months down the line, they tell us, listen, I don't trust him anymore. I don't think he's doing a good job. Okay, so we can request that they submit a report, a financial report, right then, rather than having to wait for the whole year to be over. And of course, if the siblings then change their mind that they don't want their brother to be continue being guardian of their parents, we would have to revoke the guardianship. The last thing that I will discuss basically, so the guardianship, this is how I like to explain it, because I think it is simple. It covers ordinary matters. So the things that you're going to do daily. You're going to withdraw money to buy medicine and to buy clothes, toiletries, etc. When it comes to extraordinary things, which are matters that you do not do on a daily basis, for example, investing money, buying bonds, selling a property, renting a property. In those cases, the guardian must submit a letter of request to the board, okay, before acting. The notaries are aware of this because this is what the law provides. So, for example, let's say someone comes to us, they tell us, listen, my mother has 55,000 in her bank. I want to invest them all in this bond. It is going to give her 2.5 interest annually, and it will mature after 2 or 3 years. In such case, the board will review it and they will say no, because if you invest all her money, it is not going to have any liquid money to use in case of emergency. So in such case, we would suggest, why don't you invest, for example, 45,000 and have those 10,000 liquid, okay? The same happens to properties, okay? So when a person is under guardianship, their properties can be sold. Okay? However, they would need explicit authorization. We would request that the guardian submit a copy of the promise of sale agreement so the board can see that the person under guardianship is actually mentioned in this agreement. How much the property is being sold, where it is, how big is the property, if it's going to be sold according to the market value, okay? If all is good, the board would give its authorization subject to the funds, the consideration from the property being deposited in a bank account in the person's sole name. Okay? We have a lot of cases where a person under guardianship has use of the property, and they try to sell the property without giving them their consideration. Okay, that is the most common case of abuse that we see when they are going to sell a property, but not just. Okay, we see properties trying to be sold for 70,000, 100,000. Okay, in that case, we would request an architect evaluation report, if need be, even two, and then the board would make their own decision. The board, very important, the board does not authorize donations of property, donations of money. Okay. This week we received a request. They want to donate the airspace of their mother's property to the granddaughter of the person. Okay, they told us, but before, when she was still good, living at the home, she did mention in passing that she wanted my daughter to build on top of her. Okay, but as of now, if she's diagnosed with dementia, the doctor is clearly writing that she does not have mental capacity to decide. This is a very big decision, and the board cannot authorize it because it's not in the best interest of the person who is under guardianship. Those requests we receive a lot of them as well, but the board never authorizes them. It's that when they submit a request to the board, they have a 20-day window after the board's decision is sent to them, where they can appeal the board's decision at the court of voluntary jurisdiction. They do appeal some of the board's decisions. However, any appeals regarding donations that were made at the court, even the judge refused, and they told them, no, we stand with the board's decision because it's not in the benefit of the person under guardianship. Okay. I think I covered the basic aspects of the application.